Okay, so it's December the 2nd and I'm finally finding a day to make my final spring compost heap. This is the compost heap that I made earlier in the early spring, and all around here we have piles of carbon crops from the lupins and the oats and the corn roots that came out of the last compost heap. And I'm putting together my big heap for the spring. So I've got a pile of clay, I've got a pile of seaweed, I've got a pile of oats that have been pulled out of the garden this spring. These piles have been sitting here for weeks because I've just been focusing on the garden, so they look a bit half decomposed already. I've got a bucket of burnt and crushed eggshells. Yeah, there's about 40 litres of eggshells in there. It goes down to that, but there'll be calcium and phosphate in there. I've got another, since I burnt the eggshells, I've got some more eggshells. I'll crush them up a bit and just chuck them in anyway. I've got about 40 litres of biochar, which we made ourselves, and it's actually bone char. It's nearly all made from bones. So there should be phosphate and there should be phosphate and calcium available from there over the long term. And piles of dry lupins and corn stalk roots and oats and all kinds of things all around the outside. And we've just started here. The heap's going to be, I think it's 1.4 metres wide. I've put electric fence standards in there just to define the edge of the circle. And I've just got a big thick carbon layer in there to start with, and we're just going to go from there. I've watered that, and I'll keep building from there. So we're starting to build up a nice base now. We've got a good carbon or a good mature layer, and I've put soil on that, and I've put clay on that, and I've put biochar on that. And I just remembered I forgot to tell you about another ingredient that we have that we're going to put on at this point. So we are lucky enough to have a soldier fly farm, and the research on the soldier fly liquid suggests that if you soak biochar, bone char in biochar liquid, it unlocks the calcium and the phosphate, which are the two key ingredients we're trying to build in our gardens. So I'm going to now use a watering can to put soldier fly liquid over the biochar on the compost heap, and then we'll start again with another layer. So here we are, we've put another couple of layers on here, 12 centimetres of all the brown looking stuff, which is actually a mix of mature and immature. It's just been left to dry out. And then the soil, the clay, the biochar, quite a lot of burnt crushed eggshells and seaweed, as well as soldier fly liquid and iodine in the top few layers. So we're getting up there now. Probably got a couple more layers to go before we finish it. We have to remember that the volume of it needs to be a minimum of a cubic metre if it's going to actually effectively and efficiently create a maximum amount of humus in the heap. Okay, so I've finished the heap. It's around about 1 metre high. It's got a nice dome on top, so the water will run off, but actually I'm going to cover it anyway. In the middle of summer it's way too hot and it'll just dry out too much. So I'm going to try covering it this year with a square of old sheet, which I've painted with beeswax, just to keep it a bit more waterproof, keep the wind out and the rain out if we get heavy rain. So yeah, it's 1.4 wide at the bottom. It goes to about 1.1, 1.2 high, and that is the compost heap that I've made with the carbon crops that came out of the ground to put my summer heavy feeders in. So it's all the lupins and all the oats. It's mostly lupins and oats. Should make a beautiful heap for planting my winter veggies. I think the single most important thing that's helped me learn well, it's certainly speeded up my learning process a lot in terms of how to make a heap that doesn't go over 50, 51, 52, and that makes a maximum amount of beautiful aerobic humus, which doesn't have to be turned, is the compost thermometer. So that tells me very quickly each time I make a heap whether I got the mix right or not. If it goes up high, goes over 55, I'd say I've got too much immature material in there. If it doesn't go up at all, I either haven't watered it enough or I've just got too much carbon.